In today's video, we're going to be reviewing this glasses-free 3D 55-inch TV. I can't be the only one who has dreamed of having something like this for years. Probably 10 years ago, I started wondering what it would be like to have a glasses-free 3D TV, and now I finally have the answer. We're going to be taking a look at every aspect of what this 3D TV can do and how the quality is overall, and whether or not it's worth it to purchase a very expensive glasses-free 3D TV. This one is the 55-inch model from ProMa. It is also available at a reduced cost in two smaller sizes. Before I get into any other details, I think the question that everyone has on their minds is whether or not this thing can play 3D Blu-rays directly. Up until today, I have never found a glasses-free 3D device that works with a 3D Blu-ray player. But I have with me right here my Sony X700 3D Blu-ray player and Ready Player One, the 3D Blu-ray. Let's pop this in and see if it actually works on this 3D TV. And we're about to find out. Let's find out if this thing actually works. This is the 3D DVD, the 3D Blu-ray player menu, and it seems to be loading up the disc right now. This is the menu of the 3D Blu-ray. So all I did was plug this 3D Blu-ray player into the 55-inch 3D TV via HDMI, put in the disc, and it brought me right to the 3D Blu-rays menu. And this menu is already in 3D. If we hit play, so this actually functions directly with 3D Blu-rays. It's like a dream come true for a lot of people, including myself, to be able to have a whole 3D Blu-ray collection like this, not have to do anything. So the movie is actually playing in 3D, as you can see, and it's really good quality. There's great pop out and depth, which can be adjusted to each movie that you're watching, but this is just like a dream come true for a lot of people, to pop in a 3D Blu-ray and to have it just seamlessly play on a beautiful 3D display without any glasses. It's incredible. This is the first time I've ever experienced anything like it. So that answers the first question about whether or not it actually works with 3D Blu-rays. But now, probably the second thing you're wondering is how good is the quality overall? There are a couple really important things to know about this 3D TV. The first is that you really have to be at the appropriate distance. If you're sitting right up close like this, nothing is going to look completely in focus in 3D, and then the resolution is going to look a bit grainy because it's too close. The 3D resolution of this TV is intended for viewing at 3.5 to 5 meters of distance. So about like 11 to 20 feet away from the TV is the appropriate distance to be. That's the first thing. If you're up close like this, as you can see, it's got this kind of weird warped effect going on, and that doesn't go away as you move back 1.5 meters, 2 meters. You will still be able to see this diagonal kind of warping thing, and then a little bit of noticeable like 3D pixelation. And so you gotta be the right distance away. And then this is also a display that does not have head tracking. There is like a viewing spot, a window range for multiple views. I think there's about 9 of them, possibly more, depending on where you're sitting. You gotta be in one of those spots to see the 3D effect clearly. So it's a combination of distance and then your viewing angle. But the great thing is that I've tested this out many times now. You can watch this with many people at once. Pretty much as many people as you can fit in a room back away from the TV can all watch the same thing in 3D all at the same time, which is just incredible. Like nothing else really does that. 3D laptops, tablets that I've encountered, it's really difficult to have a good shared 3D viewing experience. This is the first time that I've seen it work well, and it is just so cool to be able to sit back in like a theater room setup like this, or just in your living room and watch 3D movies directly from 3D Blu-rays. There's one other thing that's very important to know as you go in to watch a 3D movie, which is that you're gonna have to play around with the depth settings for it to have the right level of alignment for whatever 3D movie you're watching. It doesn't do that automatically, and if you go in and watch it at the default settings, chances are 3 out of 4 times the default setting is not really going to be the right one, which means that it'll be an uncomfortable, unclear, incorrect 3D viewing experience until you go in, and this is really easy to do. You just push the menu button on the remote that comes with this TV, go down to 3D mode, and then you have a 3D depth option. And at first I kind of misunderstood this to mean everything will be in focus at the correct 3D alignment and you just increase this level of depth and you'll have more depth back into the display. And while that is true, the higher you increase this, the more depth there is. At the same time, it's messing with the 3D alignment. So what you have to do, what I found, is that there is a range between 0 and 6 where you can find the perfect depth, generally 0 to 4. Test each level before you really start watching the movie to find the one that feels perfect. And you'll know when it happens because it's like, oh dang, this is beautiful when you hit that sweet spot. it is just stunning in 3D, or you'll know the instant that you find the right spot. The other option in this 3D mode menu is the level of 3D effect, and what that means is pop out and depth combined. I set it to high and find the sweet spot for the high 3D settings when I'm watching movies, which is a range of about 3 feet out from the display and then 4 feet or more back. Depth of the actual monitor goes back behind this wall behind the TV on this high setting. But you can also set it to medium or low. And what that does is it takes that range of depth and pop out and it just condenses that. Low might feel something like this, where there's not that much pop out and there's not that much depth, but you can still see a 3D effect. And then medium is somewhere in between. So it depends on your viewing preferences. For people who are not used to watching 3D things at all, or tend to feel discomfort with it, might be a better idea to try it on low first, just to get used to the 3D effect. And you will still have it. There's still pop out in depth. It just feels less overwhelming maybe to people who aren't used to it. For people who really love 3D and have been consuming stuff in 3D for years, I would say medium to high is going to be the better option for you. For the rest of this video, we're just going to continue going through all the details and things you need to know about this 3D TV. But if you're enjoying the video so far, definitely give it a like and subscribe to this channel. And the reason why I'm sitting down next to this TV is because this is the only location that I could fit it for now, is in this upstairs low ceiling theater room area that I set up. So when it comes to the actual image quality during video playback in 3D, it ranges from absolutely perfect, just flawless, jaw-dropping 3D, to a little bit jarring depending on what is being displayed. Because one of the biggest flaws of this TV that I've noticed happens consistently is artifact. And there are 3 types of artifact. And by no means does this ruin the experience for me. I think it depends on how sensitive you are to this stuff. But for me, the experience overall is so immersive and so exciting and cool to be able to watch stuff in 3D, finally, on a big screen, and then directly with Blu-ray. I don't regret this purchase one bit, and I'm watching movies every day on it. But you still need to know that it's really the first of its kind to be a consumer available 3D TV. So it has some flaws, and they're mainly in the form of artifact. 3 types. The first one is pop-out limitations. So the more pop-out you have, the more distorted or fuzzy, I would call it fuzzy or kind of degraded, the 3D image becomes. Now sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a problem. For areas where there's a character popping out of the screen because they're talking with someone else and like their shoulder or back is coming out and it's a little bit fuzzy or blurry, they're not in focus in the first place, and that's not the point of that scene. You're focused on someone in the middle. And then the image overall, it just works because you're looking at what you're supposed to, and it doesn't matter if what's popping out is a little bit blurred. You can still tell it's popping out. That makes it more immersive without actually ruining the effect. However, there are situations where it's more noticeable. And it happens usually with smaller details. So thin objects like tree branches and little leaves, or someone holding up a spear, or with antennas. These things sort of, when it's combined with pop out at the same time, end up warped. And you can see it. They don't really pop out cleanly out of the display. They'll be sort of bent or warped, and a portion of it is sometimes missing or just kind of in the wrong direction. So this sort of thing, I can forgive it and ignore it because everything else just looks so incredible, and it's just surreal to be able to watch movies in 3D this way. But I do notice, and when it happens, it can be a little bit disappointing or a little bit jarring. For some people, you would have to think about your level of tolerance for that sort of thing. However, you can do something about it by setting the 3D settings to low, and then there's less of that going on. It becomes much less of a problem. Most noticeable when you set the settings to high 3D pop out. One other example is I watched an X-Men movie, and there's a scene where there's a couple of bullets flying across the screen, and they're completely popping out of the display. But because of this specific limitation, it's a thin bullet with a thin trail. The whole thing sort of looks completely warped and distorted, and it ruined that effect. But on the other hand, there are scenes where you have lasers and ships and incredible things happening, this far off the display, and it comes out just beautiful. So I'm not exactly sure what is causing that to happen, but there's just something about this specific version of this technology that isn't really able to handle certain types of pop-out, whereas others look incredibly immersive. That's the first thing. The second thing I've noticed is that during situations where images pan to the side, or a whole scene just kind of moves to the side, you notice sort of like this vertical layering or pattern that I think is a part of the structure of this display that allows it to show you things in 3D. You don't notice it when things are not moving to the side. And then if it's colorful and there's a lot going on in the scene, even if it's moving to the side, you don't really notice. But when it's darker, when you have a big chunk of something that is black or dark, or characters wearing dark clothing moving to the side, then you start to see this vertical kind of striped pattern. But it's quite faint and not that noticeable. Sometimes I don't even notice it, but it's just something that you should also be aware of. And then the third thing, that's the last flaw that I've detected after watching many movies on this 3D TV, is that the background can sometimes also get a bit blurry and degraded. Now that again happens the most when you have more pop out, when you have the 3D effect set to high. When it's set to low, that comes together more cleanly and it's less noticeable, but still there's a little bit of drop in the clarity and focus of things in the background, like scenery, a room, or something like that. It doesn't happen every time. Sometimes the whole entire image comes out perfect, and for the entire scene it's just flawless. But there are other times where everything up in the mid-range to the front looks just stunning, but then you notice in the back that it's a little bit broken in terms of the quality. That can also feel slightly disappointing and can potentially break a little bit of that immersion. As I've suggested from everything that I've explained so far, the overall experience that this delivers, to me, the benefits far outweigh those flaws, which I can accept for this TV being the first one that's really available for anybody to buy and have in your home as a glasses-free 3D TV that is this size. I have a link to the product description in the comments for this specific model. One thing I should point out is that I've mentioned these flaws and issues to ProMa, and what they told me is that that is something that happens with this TV, and it's a trade-off because it has more depth and more pop-out. But they actually have another model that is also available to purchase that I haven't tried for myself. That is a 3D TV that comes in larger sizes, 65 inches and upwards. It's quite expensive, but the difference between this one and that one, from what I hear, is that it has less depth and less pop out compared to this TV, but the 3D effect is more comfortable and more stable to view. So I think those three types of artifact are much less prominent in their other set of 3D TVs, but it's got less depth and less pop out. And to be honest, I think I'd choose this over that one because I like that enhanced immersion when it's actually working well. But I just thought I'd let you know if you're considering either one, you can pick based on the strengths and weaknesses of both versions. I think you can see that the brightness in 3D is incredibly good. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the brightness in any scene that I've watched, a dozen movies in 3D. No noticeable difference between the 2D and 3D brightness really to any extent that would affect the viewing experience or enjoyment of it. When you're up real close like I am, you can see there's little 3D dots here, and this reminds me of the 3D tablet that I recently reviewed, where if you look up close, there's like this dotted 3D pattern. The same company, so they're probably using the same or very similar technology. But these dots can be much bigger because you're not going to be watching a movie in 2D or in 3D sitting right up next to a TV like this. That being said, when you're watching stuff in 2D, it actually looks really nice. Like, this is perfectly good as a 55-inch 2D TV if you're just using it to watch movies or Netflix, which you can do. While this TV is not a smart TV in the sense that it has Amazon Prime, Netflix, and things like that, but this 3D Blu-ray player it does. So back to the menu of the 3D Blu-ray player, and then we have YouTube or Netflix, and we can check those out. And you can see here that the image looks plenty good. There really isn't much to complain about when you're sitting back, you know, a couple meters, watching stuff in 2D on this TV. Everything looks very clean and nice. And that includes gaming. You could plug in a PC or a gaming console, play in 2D on this TV. So this is not just something that's strictly limited to watching stuff in 3D on. It functions as a perfectly good 2D monitor. The other really cool thing about this is if you're watching YouTube through the 3D Blu-ray player, you can search for any side-by-side content that's available on YouTube and then play the video and then go to the menu of this TV and switch 3D mode to left and right, and then you can play the video and you can actually view anything on YouTube that's available in side-by-side 3D in 3D on this thing. So it's not just 3D Blu-rays that you can watch in 3D. You can watch these 3D YouTube videos on this TV, and it's pretty cool. Like anything that you can think of that's available in side-by-side format on YouTube, you can watch on this TV. If I change the source from the HDMI to go back to digital signage, then it takes you to this home menu of the 3D TV. On this one that I bought, there were a couple preloaded files that allowed me to just click play and test out the 3D effect on this TV immediately. This is the first one, so like an Angry Birds example, and then there's also one from the CGI version of The Lion King. There's a button that says 2D here, and if I push this, it goes into side-by-side mode. So you can actually see how it looks side by side and then hop back to the actual 3D display mode by pushing the side SBS button on the top left here. And there's so much you can do with this. If I plug in my laptop, then I can display photos that I've taken on the Loom Pad, on the 3D tablets, or any side-by-side photos that I have can be viewed kind of as a slideshow on this. There's also a USB drive where you can plug in a USB and it will automatically import whatever 3D files you have on it to this TV. There's limited storage within, like, I think it's 2.5 gigs, so you gotta be careful, but it'll automatically load those onto this TV, and then you can view them like those movie clips I just showed you. And then every time you plug in the USB to that same port, it'll automatically delete what you had previously uploaded and load in the new file. So it's very good for demoing things or just enjoying photos and things that you want to transfer to the USB and display on this very quickly. But you can just plug in your laptop via HDMI and then display any SBS content on this as well. So you could also show YouTube videos that way, and then gaming too. Like the Shadow of the Tomb Raider is playable in side-by-side mode on a laptop, and if you plug that in via HDMI and play the game on this, you can actually play it in 3D. Now the quality, to be completely honest, doesn't come nearly as close to being very sharp as the Acer laptops. Gaming on Spatial Labs laptops is still definitely the way to go for 3D gaming from what I've experienced so far. I'm going to try it out with the PS3 too and see how it looks on this, but just resolution doesn't even come close to what it is on the 3D laptop from what I've seen so far. But movies and things just work wonderfully on this, and I think in the future there will be higher resolution. There's even a button to do a 2D to 3D automatic conversion of anything that you're watching in 2D mode, and it sort of works. I mean, it for sure pushes the image back into the TV, but it sort of feels like it just takes the image and pushes it back and then tilts it a little bit to simulate some sort of 3D depth going on, but it doesn't really make all the details and objects and people and things in the scene or image completely turn into 3D the way some of the other 3D conversion software that I've talked about on this channel do. So that's a little bit disappointing. I think in future updates, as that technology improves, it's possible they could bring better functionality, 2D to 3D conversion to this TV, and as long as it had the software, it would look excellent on this. It's just the way it is now, it only sort of really works with specific, very clear, easy to handle outlines and objects and things like that. Otherwise, you sort of wonder whether or not what you're seeing is even 3D at all. It's basically the image just pushed back. So that's pretty much it for this review of the ProMa 55-inch 3D TV. I am super happy that I have it and that I purchased it, and I am not going to part ways with this thing until there's something better that has higher resolution, pop out without artifact, and better depth without artifact. But I think it's going to be at least 1.5 to 2 years before anything like that becomes available. So for now, I'm going to be enjoying every day that I have with this, and I think if you're interested in 3D movies and you have a big 3D Blu-ray collection, this is definitely something that is worth considering. I can't imagine enjoying 3D Blu-rays any other way. And the biggest thing is that I don't have to do it alone. I can watch things in 3D with other people, which is something that I've always wanted to do. So if you feel the same way I do, check out this 3D TV and give it some consideration, because for now it is the coolest way and the best option that I can think of to enjoy 3D movies directly from 3D Blu-rays, alone or with other people. And there are plenty of other creative ways to enjoy and use this 3D TV, as we just saw during this review. So while it does have some noticeable flaws, as long as you are aware of them going into your purchase and you feel like you can tolerate that stuff, I highly recommend this 3D TV. It's a little bit like what Apple is saying with the Vision Pro. You can have the future now, or you can wait 3 years. And personally, I would rather have it now, because I'm happy to be able to have amazing experiences in glasses-free 3D today rather than waiting another 2 years. There is more value in that than any money can buy. If I can enjoy 3D content, movies and games on this for the next 2 years every day, that's something that no amount of money can buy. Those experiences and memories that can be made from doing that, to me, is more valuable than the actual price of the device itself. If you enjoyed this review and you're interested in products like this and the glasses-free 3D devices and similar reviews, definitely give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If I notice anything more worth sharing about this 3D TV, I might make another follow-up video about it, but let me know in the comments if you have any questions, what your thoughts are on this type of product and what you want to see for the future. On this channel we've come a long way with a bunch of different 3D products and device reviews, all the way up to this 3D TV now, but I see this not as the end of this journey, it's really just the beginning, because this type of device really is going to be the future, and I'm excited to experience it with you on this channel. One last final thing I'll say is I have recently come across the single coolest and most incredible 3D product that I think I've ever encountered, and it is a surprisingly simple but genius one. If you are interested in finding out what that is and you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do so you make sure not to miss that video when it drops, because I guarantee you this upcoming video is one that you are not going to want to miss. It's really a game changer for everything related to 3D devices, and you will see what I mean when I introduce it in that video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.